Hello, and welcome to another episode of the Compassionate Climb podcast. I am your host, Julia Napini, and I am here today with Leslie Stevens, and I am so excited to learn more about your climb. If you could please introduce yourself for the audience, I would appreciate it.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for having me, Julia. I was so excited to come on today. So, I am a branding and marketing strategist, and I support entrepreneurs who are in the service-based businesses really get consistent clients in their business without having to depend on social media. And it's actually all because of my journey as an entrepreneur. This is not my first business, but it's definitely where I feel like I've meant to be now.
Oh, that's so good to hear. So tell me more about what landed you here. What were the components and experiences that led you to where you are today?
So even though I'm in branding and marketing, I actually started out as a registered dietitian. So I went to school, I got my undergrad, my master's, did the internship, all of that stuff. I became a certified personal trainer. I checked all of the boxes I thought I could check. And then I started my own business and I started online. So I started to try and market myself online, doing everything I quote unquote knew what to do, which was post on social media. And I was hoping to get clients. And yes, I got clients. I found success in that sort of way, but I found myself trying to be this influencer, the Fitspo inspirational, like follow my life and like you can live this lifestyle too. But that is just because I am so grounded and you have to practice what you preach. I would never tell somebody to do something I would never do. I always wanted to show people like, okay, I eat pizza sometimes and I enjoy it and I can still be in shape and love it and this is how I work out, but it became such an overwhelming part because I felt like I had to share every part of my life because stress management goes into your health and well-being, how you work out, how you eat, all of that. So it was like every piece of my life I felt like needed to be content. And I'm an introvert. So doing that for me was completely foreign. It always felt forced in some type of way. But even when I was looking online for like, okay, how do I grow my business? How do I scale? Got help from professionals. All of their advice was, are you posting? Just post more and that will get you more clients. And yes, it got me clients, like I said, but it was never consistently and it felt like such a battle. So I got to the point where I was like, okay, something has to change. I was completely burnt out. I mean, I loved doing what I did. I would not go to school for that long if I didn't love nutrition and fitness and all of that stuff. But I came to a point where it's just too consuming of my life. And I was like, something has to change. And I had made friends with a lot of entrepreneurs and they loved my graphics, they loved my branding, they loved how I like created my brand and the feel and all of those things. So I ended up developing all of these different brands for people and I was like, well, why don't I do that? Because when I first applied for college, it was actually for art. And my whole life I wanted to be an artist. I painted murals on my walls in my bedroom. Like my parents gave me free range to really like spread that creativity. And actually in my nutrition business, my differentiating factor was really creative application because every person was different. Like you could apply the science in different ways. That's how I approached it. It was a different way to use my creativity. But then I went back to just creating the graphics and things like that, the parts of my business that I really enjoyed. And that business just absolutely took off. And I didn't need to post on social media at all. And I had this point in that business where I was like, oh, I need to be posting on Instagram. And I was like, hold up, Leslie, just hold up for a second. You have been completely sold out for 3 months and you haven't posted a single thing. You don't have a website. You don't need any of that. What have you been doing that has been getting you these clients? And I just went back and I started doing all of those things that were working well for my business and I didn't feel overwhelmed. So that's when I created the marketing aspect of my business and I started calling it Not an Influencer, More Sales Without Social Media, because I think so many of my friends personally have been held back in starting their businesses or really seeing the success that they wanted to see because they didn't want to post on social media. And I was like, hold up, you have something that's absolutely incredible that could help so many people, and you're letting this one method of marketing hold you back because you feel like it's the only way, and everybody around you is making you feel like it's the only way. So I'm like, I'm here to show everybody there is a different way to define your success. But a lot of that goes back to being in line with myself. And there are a lot of things that I tried. I tried the being an influencer. I tried different marketing methods that I had from a business coach. And I am a firm believer of trying things at least once. I think making mistakes is fantastic. And even though it's hard and you're like, oh, I did that wrong or that was uncomfortable, that has allowed me to come more in line with my integrity, know for certain what my boundaries are, what I want to stick to, what is right for me, and what I want to portray to the world. So taking those chances, making those mistakes, trying things once has allowed me to just really bury down the roots of what's right for me and stand in my integrity, even in those tough moments. Because in health and wellness, especially, like, there are so many people out there that are like, lose this much weight in this many days, or like, just do this one thing and then everything will be fixed. Like, we'll solve all your problems. It's kind of like a magic pill thing. And I was like, I'm trying to compete with these things, but doing it by like a lifestyle change and something that's a bit slower paced. And I had so many people saying like, oh, people won't buy that. People just aren't going to buy it if you're going to market it like that. But like, the world is changing. People are going to buy those things if you market that way now, because they're tired of the people selling them lies and all of these things. But it was one of those situations where I was like, what am I supposed to do if I really want to be successful? I want to help all of these people, but the only way to do that is do something that feels like it's out of integrity with me. That's something that was like, I don't want to play this game. That was one of the things where I was like, I'm out. Kind of. I don't want to have this argument. I don't want to be sleazy. I don't want to do something that's going to make not only me but other people uncomfortable. That's not why I wanted to be in business. I want to help
What an
people.
Incredible journey. I mean, so I think it sounds like you ultimately came full circle. So you came back to your roots and what you truly loved in terms of the artistic ability that you have and being creative. But I am assuming that your other journey in, the health industry still helped you.
Absolutely.
So it was a good foundation, and it sounds like something that really benefited you, but in a lot of ways helped you to figure out what you ultimately did not want, not necessarily to be doing, but how you didn't want to go about it.
Absolutely. I think being in the health and wellness space, especially online, I say that's where I built so much of my marketing skills, because there is so much noise in that industry, and you do have to get creative. You do have to find a way to stand out, to communicate with the right people, get in front of the right people. So that was a skill that I learned because I had to learn it. And I think that benefited me so much, but it also brought out that magic in me that I didn't know I had.
Yeah.
Because I would have never known I could do those things unless I was put in that position.
Of course.
And I'm happy that I did it. I'm happy that I could support the people that I supported through that business. But I'm also very excited that I was able to step away from it.
Well, you are clearly in alignment now, which is a beautiful thing. And it really seems like it has worked for you and it has taken off, but it is in such an authentic way. So tell me more of what you have found that works in contrast to what didn't. So you have shifted from being an influencer to, how would you describe it?
A relationship builder. that's like the most basic way. Like now I look at social media as something to start a conversation, but it's all about the conversations that you're having. And if you're just going on social media and posting, if you're not starting those conversations, you're not really connecting with potential clients or connecting with potential collaborators. And I don't remember what conversation I was having, but they were talking about hiding behind your posts. And I just had this like aha moment that like the whole time I was marketing for my health and wellness business, I was hiding behind my posts because I didn't fully want to put myself out there. I was afraid. I was afraid because I didn't want to be a burden on someone. I didn't want someone to feel like, oh, I thought they needed to change or anything like that. So I was just posting things, hoping people would come to me being like, oh yeah, I could use her help. And yeah, some people did that. But like, you could build relationships with people so much faster if you just go to the places that they're at. If I went to gyms and I had talks where I was in small groups, most of those people converted into clients because you build a relationship so much faster. If you set up like a referral system, I would have people who had friends who wanted to come work out. They could come work out together for the first time. Little things like that. Even doing like guest expert sessions. I did them for entrepreneurs and they were surprisingly like well received, because when you get to a certain point as an entrepreneur, you're like, okay, I need to take care of myself better so that I can keep going and building this business. But again, I would spend more time with a small group of people to build that relationship up. So their know, like, and trust factor went up exponentially rather than them just scrolling through Instagram or TikTok, seeing me for like 0.2 seconds and being like, okay, maybe I'll follow her. And maybe I would show up a week later for another 0.2 seconds. It takes so much longer to build a relationship. So even if it's just like walking down the street, talking to somebody, saying like, hey, what do you do? Being genuinely interested in people, and then telling them what you do, and they're like, oh, I know somebody. It can be that simple. And sometimes we think it needs to be so much harder, and it doesn't. We don't need to make ourselves miserable.
So with you being the introvert that you are, how do you balance out those two roles? Because I can see that being really challenging. I'm sure it gets easier over time and with practice, but how do you navigate that piece when maybe it may not always be within your comfort zone?
I always do things scared. I promised myself years ago I would do one thing every day that scares me so that I would get used to it. And yes, there are still opportunities that I feel like I miss sometimes because I hold myself back because I'm like, oh, nobody wants to know about me. I don't really want to tell anybody, all of those things. But the more you do it, the more you practice, the easier it gets. But doing things scared is the best way to do them because you're never really going to fully feel ready. And I also know, as if I am an introvert, if I do go out there and I have these talks, if I do small groups, or if I even do a bigger group, I have to give myself the space to recharge. And I have to give myself the space before to really get mentally ready, mentally prepared. Because if I don't do that, then it gets very overwhelming for me. So it's just finding a way to make it flow with my life more than like a forced activity.
That is incredible self-awareness. And I am assuming that by putting yourself out there, you are developing deeper relationships. And when you do really genuinely care about someone else and they feel that, and it comes across as authentic, they're going to be more likely to share things. You'll have opportunities to share things. It really does provide such a richer experience throughout life. Would you agree with that?
Oh my gosh, yes. It makes everything so much more fun. And especially when I'm building people's brands, it's so important for them to just be able to like talk. I always tell people, just tell me everything. Don't hold anything back. But if they didn't trust me and they didn't know me at all, they wouldn't be able to share as much with me. And I'm trying to pull out a vision from their head and create this visual storytelling for them. And some people are like, I have no idea how you, like, that's exactly what I saw in my head. And I'm like, I just listened to what you were saying and you just talked.
Wow.
And so many people don't listen enough anymore. And they don't trust people enough to just speak with them and just let it flow. I think that's harder these days because we're expecting something like short, sweet, a clip, a 30-second clip or something like that.
But it does take some time and some investment. So I guess that's the biggest question I have. This makes so much sense. I can completely understand why this works, but how do you find the time? Because as much as you develop relationships quicker, there is still that investment. There is still that time, giving that undivided attention, and we can be pulled in so many different directions. I know you're a busy gal like I am. So how do you navigate that piece?
So since I don't have to make any content for social media, that can take like 2 hours a day for most people. So if you break down the time, that could be like 14 hours a week. When I really focus on doing workshops now with my branding and marketing. So that only takes me about 45 minutes a week. If I schedule one session each week, that's only 45 minutes of my time. So I'm really saving like 13 hours a week. That gives me more space to spend with my clients or doing other stuff in my business or other stuff in my life. So it's just the marketing method that I'm focusing on right now. And that saves me so much more time. And we feel like it spends, like you have to spend so much time nurturing people, all of these things. And like, yes, it does take time, but it depends where you want to spend your time. And
so you're focusing more on the one-to-many aspect. So when you say workshops, how many people approximately are in these groups?
So it's about 10 to 20 people at a time.
Okay.
And right now they're all virtual, but afterwards, then you can have a few conversations with them. It doesn't take up too much time. It's like an hour or two. And then you just continue on to build that relationship. So if people are asking you questions, that means you're doing something right.
Great
so
point.
It's all just depending where you want to spend your time. And what I always tell people is different methods are going to work well for different businesses and different people. You have to figure out what's actually working for you. And track, okay, this is how many clients I'm getting from this is how many clients I'm getting from this. If you don't have a lot of time, focus in on what's getting you the most amount of clients. And then when you feel like have space to do another marketing method that's not working so well for you, if you want to tweak it or find something new, then you have the capacity to do that. But honing in on what is working for you is going to save you so much time and energy. That's something that I really struggled with in my first business because I was trying to do everything. And I was like, okay, I'm posting all the time. I'm sending all my emails. I'm doing X, Y, and Z, but I never looked at what was actually working for me. And actually just having conversations with people was how I got the most clients in my first business and referrals. So if I had doubled down on referrals and just like opening myself up to have more coffee chats with people or just telling more people what I did, I probably would have had more clients more quickly than if I was trying to post something and hope for the best.
Sure. Oh, that is brilliant. You mentioned integrity earlier. So I've picked up on some components of what that means for you. But if you had to define it, what would you define integrity as for you?
I've been thinking about this a lot, actually, in preparation for this. And I think it comes down to like truth. I think a lot of the times we can lie to ourselves to make ourselves feel better or be like, oh, if we do this, it will work out, even if it feels a little off. But what it all comes down to, okay, what's true? What's true for you? What's true for the situation? And I think that's what integrity is to me.
Yeah. Well, you almost made the visual, like it's cringy when you are not within integrity within yourself and what you're doing. And so it sounds like you are better equipped to listen to that and recognize when that is happening for you and being okay with trying different methods and figuring it out, you're clearer on kind of your special sauce, like what ultimately is your thing and what works and what is in alignment. So what advice would you give to someone who maybe is going about their business in the ways that you did initially and sees the benefit for a shift? How would they start that?
I would say zoom out first. Like, take a step back and look at the big picture of all of the actions that you're taking and where you're spending your time. And what do you enjoy and what's working? Focus on those things first and start to build on those. A lot of the times we get caught up in the negative too. We're like, oh, we're doing all these things, they're not working, I'm not successful. Like, we just get into the spiral and it goes really quickly. But zoom out, look at what is working first. Start to build on that and try not to get distracted until you find yourself at a point where, like, okay, you can grow and scale, and add things in one at a time so you can really see if they're working. We want to do all the things all at once, but we don't need to, even though the internet makes me feel like we have to.
Right.
But also, don't be afraid to test your boundaries.
Right.
Like, test your boundaries, see what you really enjoy. I would have never thought I would have enjoyed podcasts, and podcasts are my favorite thing. I was so nervous to be a guest on a podcast for the first time. I was like, I've got to cancel this. I can't do this. And now I have my own podcast and I absolutely love it. So test your boundaries. See where your integrity lies, because yours is going to be different than mine. And the quicker you find those boundaries, the quicker you can trust in yourself, and building up that trust in yourself, you develop that integrity very, very deeply.
Well, and I see the connection between podcasting and what you're describing with relationships. Would you agree that it is such a great opportunity for people to really delve in a little bit deeper to what you're all about, learning other people's stories? Tell me about your podcasting journey.
Yeah, so I started my podcast when it launched when I was 9 months pregnant.
Wow.
But it was definitely number one to grow relationships with people, because I genuinely want to know what other people are doing, how they develop their success. And it allowed me to help my audience see that there are other ways to create success. So through podcasting, I'm able to develop these relationships with other entrepreneurs. I'm able to help their audiences by really giving them different methods to look at and not feeling like they need to be in a box and that there's only one way to do things. But it also allows their audience to see the person that I'm talking to, their truth, their reality, some things that we don't talk about, especially in a longer form. You can tell your story really short on a reel or something, but on a podcast, you get to hear the person's emotion. You get to see the emotion, and that allows you to connect really, really deeply with those people.
Yeah, that's the word that came to mind, depth. There's context. And yeah, it also, the relatability factor, it normalizes things for people. You get a little bit of vulnerability. I mean, it's all of those components of really true relationship building, but making those connections. So it's making me think of challenges. Could you identify something that you have gone through, whether recently or anywhere throughout your journey, that sticks out in your mind as something that you're grateful that it happened because it caused you to course correct or make a shift that ultimately landed you in a better place?
I have a lot of those. Probably the biggest challenge that I was faced with was in my first business. I made pretty large investments in getting support to scale that business, because I was at a place where I couldn't support more one-to-one clients. So I tried to find people that I really, really trusted. And it ended up, I learned an incredible amount. And I am also a person who likes to learn from things that she sees and doesn't want to do. So I feel like I learned more that way than learning the things that I did want to do. But It's really hard for me to make such a large investment and not get the return that I was expecting in the way that I was expecting.
Yes.
And that was one of those situations where I was told you can't market your business in this way because people won't buy. So I tried to market my business in a way that I was very uncomfortable with. And that honestly allowed me to trust myself so much that I have not hesitated every single business move moving forward. So now I make decisions much more quickly, and I trust my intuition so much because I have been in a place where I haven't gotten great advice. So now I'm like, I know what I'm doing. I can make this decision. And I think that has made the biggest impact on not only my businesses, but my life now, because now I can make so many more decisions and I trust myself.
I see.
That's something I didn't have before. I didn't
what a
trust
beautiful
myself.
thing.
I was always looking for other people for the answer because I was like, oh, you've created this success. Why wouldn't you have this answer for me? Kind of thing.
Right.
But it didn't work for me. It didn't work for what I was creating. It wasn't in integrity with me. So I had to learn to trust myself. And that was the biggest shift. That was like, okay, you better trust yourself now.
So rather than maybe seeking out that outside confirmation from multiple sources, you're more inclined to look within yourself. Does this feel right? And if you are seeking out that support, what are you looking for now when you're maybe interviewing somebody that you might want to bring on, or whether it's a professional that's going to guide you or a consultant or whatever that may be? What do you look for now as opposed to before?
So now it's really just like advice and being able to advise, because there are people who are better than me at so many different things. And I always see an opportunity to learn and get better at things. But now it's taking in more information and not just taking that information. It's taking in all of the information and then making my own decision, and not just taking things at face value. Like, okay, she said to do this, I'm going to go do this. It's like, okay, that's one option. That's another option. Here's another option. Which one can I go with? Because now I have like amassed knowledge in certain areas where I feel more confident that, okay, it's my decision, not checking off boxes that somebody told me to do.
Oh, wow. Well, what a great place to be. I appreciate all that you shared. I feel like it gives a really good picture, and I can see listeners at any stage of their journey benefiting from hearing that, knowing that there can be that light at the end of the tunnel. The things that you're saying come with time, they come with practice, they come with experience, but that ultimately we can get there. And I think the quicker we clue into these key components, the easier it's going to be. So I really appreciate all of that. If there was one final thought that you would want everybody listening today to take away and still be thinking about when the episode ends, what would it be?
There's not one version of success. You get to create your own version. And there's so many different paths that you can take. So don't feel like you need to get stuck in one.
Well, it sounds like you have really gotten to a place where you avoid maybe some of those comparisons that maybe seemed so present before. I mean, you haven't necessarily said that, but that's what I'm picking up on, is maybe before it was because this person did this thing, or being on social media and seeing what other people are posting. You're charting your own course now.
Yes, absolutely. It is. It's very hard to not compare yourself, especially if you are starting a business. I mean, we want to succeed so badly no matter what part of our business we're in. And we see these people creating it. We're like, okay, let's do it. But doesn't have to be their way. Doesn't have to be their version. And honestly, the things that we see aren't always the truth. So,
very true. And I think that that's something that when you see the visuals and when you have that readily available at any time, it can be harder to really think what's going on behind the scenes. But I think through the stories that we share and that we're lucky enough to hear and learn about, that can help offset and balance it out a little bit. So I couldn't be happier for you that you have got to this place in your career, but also in your life where you are operating from a place of integrity, but it sounds also like authenticity, confidence. So what an inspiration. I really appreciate your time. Thank you so much for being here today.
Thank you so much for having me. I really enjoyed it.
What is the best way that people can get in touch with you if they want to learn more, if they want to seek you out for branding and marketing?
So you can go to my website. It's thecultivatedvision.com. I love having conversations on social media. So even though I don't post very much, those are my places for conversation. So you can find me on Instagram. You can find me on YouTube. It's all at The Cultivated Vision. So I'm pretty easy to find.
All right. Wonderful. Thank you so much.
Thank you.